What's up, guys? Welcome to another episode of the Jiu Jitsu Junction podcast. My name is Andre, and I'm here with my buddy Chase. And today we're going to be talking about how to create your own training camp and properly handle, your fitness and kind of periodize it for somebody who's in the beginning stages and they're maybe prepping for one of their first tournaments. It doesn't have to be the first one. And, if you just don't know how to properly do a training camp, this will be very helpful because having some kind of plan for your training and for your fitness makes a big difference in how you perform on the day.
For sure. And make sure, and maybe if you haven't competed or even heard this train of thought, It's about getting your body ready, over a set time to focus for a specific competition because competition has set time limits, and usually you train for an hour, but competition, maybe white and blue belt or 4 or 5 minute matches, right?
It depends. So it could be anywhere between 4 and 6 minutes.
Okay, so let's say 5 minute match, right? You might have 3 matches in a competition. Maybe 5. You're only you usually do a class for an hour. Technically that hour is not what you need to prepare for. You need to prepare for those 3 to 5 competition matches. So that's kind of what the periodization is and training camp does, is it takes you from, getting your body ready for a lot of training to really focus training so you're ready for specific competition.
Yeah, and it's you were talking about preparing for that level of time block, but I also think that for a proper training camp, you have to peak your general fitness for that time period, right? So there's a lot that goes into it. You're preparing for a specific type of exercise, and then you're preparing your body in general for that peaking at that specific part of specific period of time.
Everything is kind of angled towards that.
Yeah,
across the board, fitness, nutrition, strength, the way you practice, intensity, so that same outline is across the board and everything.
Yeah. So if you've never done it before, that's a lot of moving parts. And a lot of people, they think that, okay, well, I'm getting ready for this competition, I'm going to start jogging more. And I'm like, yeah. I mean, if you don't have,
that'll make you better at jogging.
Yeah. If you don't have any baseline cardio, then obviously that's going to show you some returns, right? We had a kid walk into the room. So let's get back to it. I believe we were talking about how people think that jogging is going to help, right? So if you don't have any baseline cardio, jogging will certainly help.
For sure. No question.
And if you don't have that baseline cardio, you're probably not performing that great in the gym. And, that's probably the first step is establishing the baseline cardio. But if we're looking at creating a training camp, that means that you probably have the baseline cardio already. So adding more reps of jogging level intensity, it's not going to help you as much as doing things that are specifically designed for that type of exercise.
Yeah, and maybe if you say, okay, I'm going to do a competition, I think most people 3 months, 8 to 12 weeks is kind of good goals for people. Even if they don't start in, you don't start focused training until 8 weeks, but the first 4 weeks you kind of start getting a general fitness. Maybe that's the time that, okay, I'm going to do a competition in 3 months. Okay, I'm going to start doing a little extra running. And that's just to build general fitness, but that's going to fall off when we get closer to competition because that's not going to help direct us towards competition shape.
Yeah.
So maybe, for the first 2 weeks, maybe that's part of general fitness is getting a baseline, a run in. But yeah, that's kind of old school. I love it when I coach kids and I coach high school kids because the high school kids always got the dad who you run with trash bags on every day and.
God, talk about making it hard to succeed.
Yeah, you better believe it. Wait a minute, you've been wearing a trash bag all week? What?
How are you keeping up with your water? You're doing something designed for water.
That's why you're dying every day. That's why you don't okay, it all makes sense now. But yeah, so there's a lot of science there. I mean, the general outline that we try to follow, you've got your general fitness, and that's going to kind of lay your base for the camp. You'll have a kind of a strength building phase where you're trying to get a little stronger, a little more explosive, and then it'll kind of shift into fight prep, and that's just your strength and conditioning side. That's to kind of prepare your body to go through
what you're about to put it through.
Yeah, that competition, and that's just that stuff's going to help you with injuries, injury prevention. I would probably say that's the biggest value in a strength program for competition, for competing. It's really just preparing your body for the extra stress load, and it does something for your brain and your muscle connection. It just tightens it up, and you can kind of avoid the injuries there. So that's kind of the first place when it comes to fitness and strength is a general fitness plan, a couple weeks, and then we move into a building phase, and then into kind of competition prep, which is everything's really close to competition time. We're not trying to really get stronger during that time. We're just trying to increase output and work harder. So that's kind of the layout as far as strength and conditioning goes.
How long do you think it would? Another kid interruption, but
it's kind of funny because he's with us. I mean, every time probably the last 10 episodes we've done podcasts, he's been here. So it's funny, he's good, but it's definitely catch number 2 today.
It's okay. Like this, it's just part of our lives is having the kids around, right? And that's good. I'm happy to have them around, but sometimes it comes with this. So anyway, so the question I was about to ask is, so you're talking about like we're peaking and we're doing our strength in order to prevent injuries and things like that, and you're not looking to increase output or basic strength. So how long do you think it would take if you're looking to get stronger before?
Let me make sure I'm being correct. So, like, let's say if we had and this would be as general as I can make it, right? Because there's a lot of specifics that kind of go in, but the general outlines stay the same. So, like, let's say 12 weeks. Maybe for the first 2 weeks is, general. And everything I kind of have worked around and built around the way I lay things out is from our MMA team, from our pros, and watching our instructor, our head instructor, and kind of following guidelines. And so, general physical preparedness, GPP, is kind of your first step, and that's just getting you. That's a length of a workout, so your body can handle that hour of practice, that those. An hour of hard practice, so and then you'll have a period, probably 4 to 6 weeks where, strength conversion, where you're building strength during that time to prepare for the fight camp, for the competition, for that match. And then, maybe your last 2 to 4 weeks, now you're transitioning that strength to being able to use it, to being able to keep your intensity up and to be able to have a higher output at that strength level. So there's probably a 4 to 6 week window in there where you can work on getting stronger, and you can work on getting stronger all the time. But as far as for direction towards a fight, we want that last period to not be as heavy, to be more what is slow 5 reps going to do? Not really prepare us for competition. So it changes to a little more explosive, a little more full movements. Maybe it has a finisher on it that has conditioning, but just not as you're not trying to put on heavy weight and get stronger. You've already done that, because the last 4 weeks is kind of your time you're going to train hard, and that'll be the next kind of step we talk about. Is not just the strength side, but how we'll train.
Oh, interesting. Okay, cool. Interesting.
Yeah. So I guess that's next, right? So over that 12-week period, in the beginning we have long days. Kind of in the middle, they're long. In the beginning, they're long, less intense days. That's generally more learning. We're learning new techniques, new ideas, new concepts. And there's a point where that needs to shift, and you're not really trying to learn a bunch of new things now. You're trying to drill and learn these new things. And in this phase, your drill intensity starts a little lower, and after a couple of days of drilling the same techniques that you're going to implement over this time, you should start picking that up. And then it kind of transitions towards the end of camp. Maybe that period you're drilling really hard to the point where, it feels kind of like live, but it's just hard drilling on the stuff that you were learning the first period. And then it transitions before the camp into kind of drill, match, and live, where we're pretty much going from start to finish, and then you're escaping back to start and finish, and then a lot of live. So that's the most general way I can lay it out. And I know with my kids, preparing Team USA, the kids getting ready for IMAAF, the IMMAF, International MMA Federation Youth World Championships in Abu Dhabi. I've had a couple kids come in this summer, and I've got 3 that are preparing for it. I'm preparing for it. The last week, all the work's done. We already got prepared early in the summer. Man, they got strong in the middle of the summer. Man, they're running and they're super explosive. Now the last phase is just submission defenses and touch everything. So we're just checking boxes at this point. Everything we worked on the first part of camp, we're just touching it. And I really focus on submission defense. Maybe that's an extra little additive there. But getting ready for competition, like I make sure we touch, all the submission defenses, just kind of bad position-esque. That's a really good thing to add on, is those bad positions throughout a camp as well.
Is that why we started doing bad position day in general?
Because bad position is just something that, it's a bad position, right? It's the most uncomfortable position we can put you in. Okay, you're putting somebody on my back, and even worse, you're putting me in a triangle. Man, that's about as bad as it gets, right? So you really have to that's not something you can kind of hang out. And we prescribe bad position days towards the end of fight camps. You need that. After you're wore out, you've been training hard, now you got to go in the class with, people that come in fresh and do bad positions. So we kind of implement that at the end. I think at the end too, I talked earlier, learning and kind of those concepts and tactics. In the end, I make sure to bring all those back up. I make sure we talk about, hey, we were doing this because of this, remember? This is why we were doing this, and making sure that whatever the concepts, like, hey, every time they try to pull guard, we make sure we don't let them close their guard. We pop up and we pass. Little things like that are competition mindset that we shift to as well.
Very cool. So let's bring this back to how someone who's, their own advocate, jiu-jitsu, beginner to intermediate, like, how do you think this would look specifically for jiu-jitsu? I think that, we're talking about MMA and youth MMA both, right? And
I tried to keep that pretty general because that's an outline. I try not to say anything, punches to takedowns or anything.
Yeah, that's true.
It's pretty general, I believe. And I guess, obviously let's finish the question and then I'll answer it. But I hopefully, that's about as general as it can be.
Oh yeah, for sure. I just want to make it clear that it's very applicable to when you're creating your own training camp, because like, it's funny because you're talking about MMA and all of this, and it's all peaking for a specific event, right? And there's less specific events that are big for people who are competing in that space, right? But then we've got so many white belt, blue belt jiu-jitsu tournaments, and people just think they could walk in and like there's not good information on how to structure your own training. So I want to give people something actionable so that they can kind of roughly simulate a training camp, but maybe without all of the like official structure, right? And the first thing I would say is that do some of the understanding of tactics up front by talking to your instructor, perhaps.
For sure.
Right. And like the instructor is not here to do a full training camp schedule for you. That's far beyond the scope of what a normal jiu-jitsu instructor is going to be willing to do for you. But you can kind of roughly follow how to construct a fight camp for yourself. If you have a few buddies at the gym, you can definitely take care of doing that first bit of getting all your GPP in the place where it should be, right? And then what do you think that we can do as an individual athlete without specific guidance that can help us get the most out of doing a training camp block of time?
Easy. Easy. Yeah, I think I would start, or hey instructor, I am sensei.
Sensei. JJ.
Instructor, I'm looking to do a competition 12 weeks away. Do you have any recommendations? And that's probably the first place I would start. I would say, hey, what do you think I should do? How do you think training should be, blah, blah, blah. But I would probably start with going to all the classes. Like at the beginning of that camp, the easiest route is do if there's a fundamental class or a gi and a no gi, like do extra classes in the beginning. That's going to kind of help with your general fitness, and kind of extend you out and try to really, take a ton of notes, learn a bunch, and then in those roles, you're not trying to compete. You're trying to learn those techniques you're learning, that stuff. And that's only learning. There's not a second in there where you try to beat somebody in that first little time block, and then I make a mark. Okay, at this date, I'm going to cut one class back. That's just so I can work a little harder in the other class. And now, the last period, there was a couple things that I liked that we done. We learned Kimura to bump sweep. We learned this guard pass. Okay, so I'm going to try to find these things in my rolls. And now we're not necessarily learning anymore. We're working towards things. We're not trying to play with things. We're working towards things, and that kind of gives us the ability to start drilling a little harder. And then in your drills, your intensity of drill picks up. It's no longer once you get, if I'm learning when I drill, I might hit every checkpoint every second of that hour I drill. If I'm not learning, if it's not a learning period, I'm going to try to I'm like, hey, will you give me a little more resistance? And we kind of push back and forth a little more resistance. So, it kind of shifts my training mindset to a little more, okay, I'm working harder. And then your competition, your roles turn into trying to hit these couple things, trying to find these things that you have. And then towards the end, you just narrow that down more and you say, okay, I'm only doing one class at a time. And then when I get my roles, I'm going to look for those guys that over the last 6 to 8 weeks were tough roles. They were okay with going hard. They kind of got after me, and I'm going to make my roles tough.
Yeah, roll with those people as much as you can towards the end.
3 rolls is usually what you get in a class. That's the general.
I'd say 3 to 5. It just depends on the school.
Okay, well then 3. So at least 3 to 5. You can make 3 rolls your toughest rolls in class. And I would probably even say 3 your toughest, and then 1 where you're about even. That way you're not totally just getting smashed, and you're still able to learn. Yeah. Learn a little bit because you are getting ready for competition, and it is important to have some success getting ready for competition. So that is important. But maybe that answers it right from top to bottom. That would be the way I would kind of start your drilling by learning, move into your drills, and it starts with a little lighter drill intensity, but it picks up towards the end of that block. And then there's another date where it's like, okay, now I'm working this stuff pretty much live, and then my roles are, I'm trying to win.
Yeah.
I'm trying to win. I would also make sure we look into rule sets. Mm-hmm. BJJ, there's a bunch of rule sets. Yeah. So look into rule sets, and that would also be in that middle to last block where I would start making sure that we're doing things like I wouldn't just give up a sweep, or if I'm fighting for a takedown, I wouldn't just concede the takedown. There's places where it's like, okay, I need to be on top here. Mm-hmm. And that's for competition. Or, hey, I can't go straight to mount. I need to stop at side control for 3 seconds, get my points. So that start thinking about those type of things.
More specific tactics for your actual rule set.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, and that's something people don't necessarily, they think, okay, it's just going to be like class. Well, there could be some things that you're doing that you're not allowed to do at competition. You could be rolling in a place where submissions matter. No one pays any attention to points, and that's fine. That's just a different kind of match your environment as closely as you can to the competition that's going to happen.
And our gym's closer to that, So and I've actually lost a handful of competition matches. And I'm looking at the guy like, man, are you not going to? But you don't have to. I conceded and tried to play jiu-jitsu. He won the takedown and held me in half guard. He was playing just the rules.
Yeah.
If I didn't get out of his half guard, he's winning 2-0. He won 2-0.
Yeah, happens.
So those things, you're going to get a different energy a lot of times in competition, even if you're going hard with your partners. So, really making sure you're prepping for those rules and understanding that competitions are going to be different. I guess something I do with our kids too is I try to make sure you see a competition before you compete as well. I think that's kind of important. Because it'll be different than what you think.
Yeah, for sure.
So I think that's always like I'd find one that's within driving range, within that 12-week period, and just go watch your division. Yeah, that way what's coming.
Yeah, pay $10, go watch it.
Better believe it.
See, you feel the energy because it's a very different energy. Different. Yeah.
You'll get excited. And definitely you will. So don't worry.
Yeah. So it's going to be fun because if you're in the sport, you're thinking about competing, you're going to enjoy watching it. Yeah. I have a few other kind of side points. Maybe your coaches are not paying specifically a lot of attention to the way you're doing, and that's unfortunate, but it happens. It's relatively common, right? You don't have to just talk to your coaches about tactics. Your training partners, especially the ones that can kind of mess you up sometimes, they're going to have probably more actionable advice for you than a high level, like a coach that's like a little bit removed from watching you during training.
Which is very, very rare where we're at. But there's a lot of places where coaches aren't.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, they're like sitting on their phone, right? Like it's
ask us.
Yeah. You could ask us, leave a comment, right?
Yeah, ask us for sure.
Yeah. So you can talk to your training partners. Your training partners are going to be kind of the people who are helping you with your camp. You just talk to them. Yeah. Like every time somebody's like, "Oh, I'm thinking about competing 3 months from now." I'm like, "All right, what are you thinking about working on?"
Yeah.
Let's go there.
Yeah, and make sure and that too, like, hey, I'm getting ready for competition. Oh, that's why you grabbed me like that today.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, sorry. No, so like it's good to be like, hey, end of August I got a competition. I hope you've probably seen it, but I try to do it specifically, and I'll start messaging in our group like, hey, coming today, please bring your gi, give me some rolls. Like I make sure it's known, like, hey, I got a competition coming, so that it's kind of clear that we're going a little, and it's done me well. I don't have many times where people are like, oh man, you must be getting ready for a competition.
Yeah, everybody gives you their best, and they try to help you as best they can.
So I would definitely let them know. Yeah, I love the community in it.
Yeah. So, all right, I think that's a really good general outline on how you might structure a training camp if you're doing it kind of mostly on your own, which most of us in jiu-jitsu, we mostly have to do it on our own. Yeah. So something that's going to give you outsized returns is paying attention to getting your GPP up, because, God, some of the people you see at jiu-jitsu tournaments did not pay attention to that. So pay attention to that. The sliding scale of intensity or assertiveness, I think it's more like we're creating these little bubbles of being good at certain technique bubbles, right? And then we're assertive in getting there, and we just like add intensity, add focus towards those things, right? And then we just kind of like slide along. We keep getting more and more intense towards the competition, right? Yep. And like this is the time to develop and get to your A game, and you need to practice getting to your A game with the intensity that you're going to be giving in competition. Yep. So you can definitely do this on your own. Talk to your training partners, talk to your instructor, but your training partners are going to help you a lot. Yeah. So any closing thoughts?
No, that's just that's something. If anybody ever needs any help, make sure to message us, comment us in it. That's actually it's what I do for a living. Yeah. Is kind of prep for camps and tournaments. Like, you know, this summer I had kids coming in from across the country getting ready for Worlds. You know, and that's and then had a girl come in getting ready for another world competition in another organization. So it's definitely what, you know, one of the things I do daily. So yeah, ask us. We would definitely help with that.
Yeah, we will help as much as we can. We love to hear from you. Anyway, we hope you enjoyed this episode, and we will see you in the next one.